The night sky over Arizona was usually quiet. Miles of desert stretched in every direction, broken only by mountains rising like black teeth against the stars. It was the kind of silence that made you forget the rest of the world existed until the stars themselves began to move. Captain Ethan Cole stood on the roof of NORAD's auxiliary observation facility, binoculars pressed against his eyes. He had been stationed here for 6 months, tracking satellites, cataloging debris, keeping watch over Earth's orbital pathways. Tonight, his routine was shattered. "Control, this is Cole," he said into his headset, keeping his voice level. "I have something. Multiple objects descending from high orbit. No transponders. No heat signatures that match any launch we've recorded. Copy, Cole. Tracking now." The voice of Lieutenant Harper, his comm officer, was calm, but Ethan knew that calmness. It was the kind of stillness before panic. The objects weren't meteors. They weren't random junk. They moved too precisely, in formation, their paths burning a slow line across the heavens like falling spears. Then one of them flashed, just for an instant, and a ripple of light spread across the atmosphere, like a stone dropped into a still pond. And every satellite feed on Earth went dark. Ethan's stomach tightened. This wasn't natural. This was coordinated. By the time he made it back inside the bunker, the base was in chaos. Screens flickered with static. Technicians shouted over each other, scrambling to restore communications. A general alarm blared through the concrete halls, low and bone-deep, like the growl of something ancient waking from slumber. "Report," barked General Marcus Hayes, commander of the installation. "EMP-like event," Harper said, fingers flying over a dead console. "Not nuclear. Not solar. Something targeted. We've lost orbital coverage across the board, satellites, comm relays, GPS all offline." "Who could do this?" asked another officer. "They didn't just do this," Ethan said, breath coming faster. "They announced themselves." As if to answer, a new sound rolled over the desert, one no one present had ever heard before, a deep, resonant hum, like a choir of engines the size of cities. The ground trembled. Ethan and Hayes exchanged a look, then ran to the surface. Above them, the stars were gone. Where constellations had once been, there was now a black shape so vast it blotted out the night sky, a ship, or perhaps a fleet of them, so immense it defied human comprehension. Its edges shimmered with blue light, and its sheer silence was terrifying. Then the sky spoke. The voice was not human. It was layered, metallic, carrying the weight of something that had ruled the stars for millennia. "People of Earth. You have been deemed non-compliant with imperial law. Submission is required. You will dismantle all military assets and place your planetary governance under the protection of the Zarek Empire. Failure to comply will result in complete eradication." The message repeated 3 times, in every language on Earth, before the sky went quiet again. For a long moment, no one moved. No one breathed. Humanity had just been given an ultimatum. General Hayes broke the silence. "Get me the president. Now. Secure line whatever we have left." Within 2 hours, the world's leaders gathered through hastily patched-together quantum links. The White House Situation Room became the nexus of global communication. Ethan, though a mere observer, found himself summoned as part of the NORAD command chain. He sat at the far end of the table, feeling like a man who had accidentally wandered onto the stage of history. President Catherine Doyle was standing at the head of the table, her sharp eyes taking in the room. "We have confirmation from every nation, this is not a hoax. These are not human-made vessels." No one disagreed. Secretary of Defense Walter Briggs leaned forward, his jaw tight. "Madam President, this is an act of war. We must not kneel." "But what do we have to fight them with?" asked Prime Minister Alana Chen of Canada through the screen. "They shut down our satellites like flipping a switch. Their ships are bigger than cities." Ethan cleared his throat before he could stop himself. Every head turned toward him. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" he asked. Doyle nodded. "They came here to intimidate us," Ethan said. That means they think we're dangerous enough to need scaring. You don't intimidate ants before stepping on them. You do it when you're worried they might bite. Briggs's grim expression turned into the faintest of smiles. The captain has a point. Are you suggesting we fight back? Chen asked incredulously. Not suggesting, Hayes said. Stating. If they'd given us a window to surrender, we have a window to strike first. If we don't, they'll dismantle everything we are. Doyle's expression hardened. What assets do we still have? That was when a new voice entered the conversation, a voice no one expected. Project Hammerfall is still online, said Admiral Ryan Cross, head of Strategic Space Command. The room went silent. Hammerfall was classified beyond top secret, a last resort contingency plan whispered about but never confirmed. It was never meant to be used, Doyle said softly. Cross's face was grim. Neither was nuclear war. But if we don't use it now, we won't have a chance to use anything ever again. Ethan's blood ran cold. He knew what Hammerfall was, at least, in theory. A single kinetic strike platform in deep orbit, hidden beyond the moon's shadow. Its payload, a tungsten spear the size of a skyscraper, capable of hitting with the force of a meteor strike. Humanity had just been threatened with extinction. Hammerfall had just been given its reason to exist. Doyle turned to the table, her voice steady. Prepare Hammerfall. Target selection? Cross didn't hesitate. The command ship. Take out the head, and the fleet will scatter. The next hours passed in a blur. Ethan found himself in the control room of Hammerfall Command, deep beneath Cheyenne Mountain, as launch protocols were verified and firing solutions calculated. Every second felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into the abyss. Outside, the alien fleet waited, silent and patient, as if daring humanity to resist. Final authorization, Madam President, said Cross. Doyle's hand hovered over the biometric reader. She looked at the faces around her, the generals, the scientists, the soldiers. Then she pressed her palm down. Somewhere beyond the moon, a weapon that had never been fired roared to life. Ethan watched the readouts as the tungsten spear detached from its cradle, began its silent fall toward Earth's sky and toward the invader blotting out the stars. In the silence that followed, he thought of one thing, the moment just before a storm breaks. And then, the sky lit up. The first sign that Hammerfall had hit its mark wasn't sight, it was sound. A rolling boom tore across the desert sky, shattering the silence like glass. Ethan Cole felt the floor shake beneath him, even though he was buried hundreds of feet below Cheyenne Mountain. Monitors flickered as seismic waves rippled through the planet. Impact confirmed, reported Lieutenant Harper, her voice sharp with controlled excitement. On the main screen, satellite substitutes hastily improvised from ground-based telescopes showed the alien command ship just as the kinetic spear struck its hull. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the ship exploded. Not a fireball, not the Hollywood version of an explosion, but a catastrophic disintegration. The spear punched through the command vessel at orbital velocity, releasing enough kinetic energy to rival a small nuclear detonation without the radiation. The vessel's armored superstructure shattered like porcelain under a hammer, sending molten fragments tumbling into the upper atmosphere. Cheers erupted in the control room. Ethan didn't join them. Wait for it, he murmured. Because he knew what came next. Sure enough, the alien fleet reacted. The black sky above Earth lit with hundreds of pinprick flashes, smaller ships igniting engines, moving rapidly. The entire formation seemed to writhe in pain, like a wounded animal. Reading massive power surges, shouted attack. Fleet is repositioning, fast. General Hayes stood ramrod straight, jaw tight. Are they retreating? No, Harper said, eyes wide. They're charging weapons. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was the part no one wanted to think about. The fleet had just watched its command ship die. If this was an empire, if they followed any logic of power, their response would be immediate and merciless. Brace for counterattack. Hayes barked. The order was barely out when the first strike hit. From the heavens came beams of white-hot light, stabbing through the atmosphere. The nearest city to the impact site, Phoenix, flashed bright as day. Ethan's stomach twisted as live feeds from ground-based cameras showed skyscrapers vaporizing, asphalt melting into rivers of fire. The alien fleet wasn't targeting military bases first. They were targeting population centers. The cheers in the control room died. President Doyle's voice cut through the air like a blade. "General Hayes, get me a retaliation plan. Now." "Ma'am," Hayes said, "Hammerfall was a single-strike platform. We have no more spears to throw." "Then we find another way," Doyle said, steel in her tone. "This ends tonight. One strike wasn't enough, we need to finish them." Ethan's mind raced. The alien fleet was vast, but their coordination had broken the instant their command ship was destroyed. He saw it in the chaos of their maneuvers, ships veering too close to each other, overlapping fields of fire, energy signatures spiking erratically. "They're vulnerable," Ethan said aloud. Cross turned toward him. "Explain." "They lost central command," Ethan said quickly. "Look at their formation, they're panicking. If we hit them hard enough, now, we can break them completely." Briggs frowned. "With what? We don't have orbital strike capacity left." Ethan stared at the screen, then felt a chill as a thought occurred to him. "We still have everything else," he said slowly. "Ballistic missiles. Drones. Aircraft. Submarines. We throw every long-range weapon Earth has left, conventional or nuclear, straight at them, all at once. No warning. No hesitation. A single, coordinated planetary strike." The room went very still. "That would expose every launch site we have," Briggs said. "Every silo. Every sub. We'd be defenseless if it fails." "If we don't do it," Ethan said, voice hard, "there won't be a planet left to defend." Doyle nodded once, decisively. "Do it. Global launch authorization, full spectrum assault. Make sure the entire fleet fires at once." What followed was unlike anything in human history. The order went out. Across the world, from North Dakota to Siberia, from submerged Ohio-class submarines to mobile launchers in hidden valleys, Earth's arsenal came alive. In the control room, Ethan watched as launch telemetry lit up like a Christmas tree. Dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of missiles streaked skyward, their contrails cutting white scars across the darkened atmosphere. Some carried nuclear warheads. Others carried simple tungsten rods or high-explosive payloads. It didn't matter. What mattered was the sheer number. For one terrible, beautiful moment, the sky was ablaze with fire, humanity throwing everything it had into the void, daring the invaders to survive. Alien point defense systems activated, trying to swat the missiles from the sky. Many were destroyed mid-flight. But too many got through. The first detonations rocked the heavens. Nuclear fire bloomed silently above the clouds, bathing the alien fleet in searing light. Ships erupted like popcorn under a blowtorch. Debris rained down, some pieces burning up in the atmosphere, others crashing into remote deserts and oceans. Ethan gripped the edge of the console as he watched the impossible happen. The fleet was breaking. Not just retreating, shattering. "This is it," Cross breathed. "We're actually doing it." On the screen, a massive alien dreadnought tried to turn away, engines blazing. 3 simultaneous nuclear strikes hit it amidships. It broke in half. Another ship tried to descend lower into the atmosphere, perhaps to strike back at the launch sites, but Earth's fighter jets were already waiting. Squadrons of F-35s and experimental hypersonic interceptors swarmed it like hornets, launching volleys of air-to-air missiles until the vessel spiraled down in a burning arc, slamming into the Pacific with a flash brighter than the sun. The control room was dead silent as the last alien ship tried to escape orbit. "Tracking," Harper whispered. "Last vessel is leaving engagement zone." "No survivors," Hayes said flatly. "No," Doyle said. "Let it run." Everyone stared at her. "They need to take a message back to whoever sent them," she said. "Tell them Earth does not kneel." Ethan slumped into a chair, adrenaline crashing through his system. He had just witnessed the first interstellar war, and humanity had survived. Barely. Damage reports? Doyle asked. Phoenix is gone, Briggs said grimly. Casualty numbers still climbing. We lost at least 2 million people in the first strike. A heavy silence settled over the room. They had won, but the price was horrific. This isn't over, Doyle said finally. Whoever commands that empire will not forget what we did tonight. They will come again. Harder. Ethan looked up, meeting her gaze. Then we make sure they regret it even more next time. That night, the fires over Earth slowly died. But in the void beyond the moon, somewhere among the stars, a single alien vessel fled into hyperspace, carrying news back to its masters. And humanity began to prepare. 3 weeks later, the sky over Earth was clear again. The fires were out. The rubble of Phoenix had stopped smoking. And yet, the planet still felt raw, scarred. Captain Ethan Cole stood at the edge of what had once been downtown. The crater was 3 miles across. Twisted steel jutted out from blackened ground. He had been sent here to assist with recovery operations, but there was no recovering a city that had been erased from existence. You were there, right? A voice asked behind him. Ethan turned to find Sergeant Laura Kane, her fatigue still dust-stained. She had been working search and rescue since the first night, digging through radioactive debris with nothing but protective gear and determination. Cheyenne Mountain, Ethan said quietly. Then you saw it, she said, almost accusing. You saw them fall. He nodded once. Good, she said. Because out here, it doesn't feel real. It just feels empty. He didn't have an answer for that. He wasn't sure anyone did. Half a galaxy away, the emptiness was replaced by rage. Deep within the imperial capital of the Zarek Empire, the surviving captain of the lone retreating vessel knelt before the imperial throne. The emperor's voice rumbled through the hall like the growl of a storm. You allow your command ship to be destroyed. You allow your fleet to be annihilated. Explain. The captain kept his eyes down, trembling. They struck with a single weapon, my liege. A kinetic projectile of impossible velocity. Then the planet itself fired everything it had. It was coordinated. Beyond what we calculated for a Tier 3 species. There was a long, dangerous silence. This Earth defied the Empire with one blow, the Emperor said slowly. A blow that killed 1,000 of our warriors. They will learn the price of insolence. Prepare the vanguard. Across the galaxy, the war machine of the Zarek Empire began to turn. Back on Earth, President Catherine Doyle stood before the United Nations, her voice ringing through the chamber. 3 weeks ago, we were given a choice, submit or die. We chose to fight, and in doing so, we showed the galaxy that humanity will not kneel to tyrants. Applause echoed through the hall, but it was solemn applause. Everyone present knew the cost. But, Doyle continued, we must not fool ourselves. We have wounded an empire. Empires do not forgive. They come back, and they come back harder. Which is why, effective immediately, all of Earth's nations are joining together under a single planetary defense command. Ethan, standing at the back of the room in dress uniform, felt a strange weight settle on his shoulders. He knew what this meant. The world was uniting, not just politically, but militarily. The age of separate nations was ending. Humanity was becoming one war-ready civilization. Preparations began immediately. Shipyards in orbit, long dormant, were activated. Hypersonic aircraft prototypes were rushed into mass production. Nuclear arsenals were rebuilt and doubled. But the most secret project of all was what Admiral Cross had dubbed Hammerfall II, a next-generation weapon, not just a single spear but an entire constellation of orbital platforms capable of delivering strikes anywhere in the system. Ethan was brought in as a liaison, helping coordinate the launch of new satellites and the construction of massive kinetic platforms. Every day, the fear of a second invasion loomed over them, spurring faster work. And then, one night, the warning came. Contact, shouted Harper, now promoted and overseeing NORAD's new orbital defense division. We have incoming signatures, multiple dropping out of hyperspace near Mars orbit. The control room lit up with activity. Ethan felt his heart hammering as the screen filled with crimson icons, dozens of ships, far more than the first wave. Zarek Vanguard Fleet, Hayes said grimly. They're here. President Doyle's face appeared on the command screen. Her voice was calm, but her eyes burned. This time, she said, we strike first. From Earth in orbit, the second hammerfall came alive. Massive tungsten rods were released in a carefully calculated spread, burning through space at meteoric speed. The alien fleet didn't expect a first strike. The projectiles tore through their formation before they even reached Earth's orbit, vaporizing 2 capital ships instantly. Then came the second phase. Dozens of nuclear warheads detonated in the void, the blinding light overwhelming sensors and frying targeting systems. Human-built warships, primitive compared to galactic standards but fast and aggressive, launched from orbiting platforms, cutting through the disoriented fleet with precision missile volleys. On the ground, long-range hypersonic drones added their firepower, shooting down any craft that tried to descend toward the atmosphere. It was over in less than 30 minutes. The Vanguard fleet was gone. Not defeated. Destroyed. Silence filled the control room. The world was holding its breath, waiting for confirmation. Last hostile contact eliminated, Harper said softly. Space is clear. Cheers erupted, but they were not cheers of celebration. They were cheers of survival, grim, exhausted, determined. President Doyle addressed the planet within the hour. Tonight, we have shown the galaxy that Earth is not prey. We are not a weak world to be conquered. We are a force to be reckoned with. Let this battle be the last time any power thinks to threaten us. Ethan watched the broadcast from the command deck. He knew she was right, but he also knew this wasn't truly over. Somewhere out there, the Emperor of the Zarek Empire was staring at the wreckage of 2 fleets and weighing the cost of sending a third. But something had changed. For the first time in history, humanity wasn't just surviving. It was ready. He stepped outside the command center, looking up at the stars. For centuries, they had been distant lights, untouchable, unreachable. Now they were battlefields. And humanity, he realized, had just taken its first step toward owning them. Weeks later, deep in Imperial space, a lone probe returned from its mission, delivering a message it had intercepted. It was a human transmission, broadcast wideband, impossible to miss. To the Zarek Empire, we are Earth. We do not surrender. If you come again, bring enough ships for your own funeral. The Emperor stared at the message for a long time. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the ruler of the Zarek Empire hesitated.